Imagine this. You are in the middle of college. You are thriving. You're doing well in your classes. You started going to the gym consistently. You found a really great brunch spot for you and your friends to go to every Sunday. Being very consistent with your grades and showing up for yourself and for others. And then all of a sudden, it stops. For those of you that know, you guessed it. It was 2020 and COVID hit. This is what happened for me. So this is the story of how the pandemic turned me into a writer. So you might have guessed it. Yes, it was the year of our Lord 2020 and I was in middle school. I was really just finding my stride. I would say I was really finding my stride. And like many people, we had to stop everything we were doing and go back home. So I had to go home for the first time in about 2 years. I'd been home like visiting, but to really go back, I felt like I was a completely different person. And it was jarring to be like, okay, we're just back in our old environment. And you're different, but the environment's the same. And essentially I had to do school online. And I remember thinking, okay, what is this gonna look like? How long is this gonna last? And it ended up being much longer than anyone anticipated. I thought it would be a few weeks. It was not, which is fine. It's what it was. But I remember having to finish out school from mid-March until May. And then having to continue in the summertime and thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Like, we're all quarantined. You can't really be outside. Like, where am I going to go? Who am I going to hang out with? My major was theater. So I was really just used to being around other folks and having an ensemble to surround me. And I remember thinking, okay, we have to figure this out. So I ended up actually taking summer classes because I decided I wanted to, maybe finish graduating a little bit earlier. But I also was like, okay, what else can I do? If I can't be outside, if I can't do my normal activities that involve a lot of my friends, what can I do? So I sat and I started thinking of an experience that I had when I was 16, which I won't share here just yet because I will end up, sharing that writing hopefully with the world. But essentially, I started writing about an experience that I had, took pen to paper and was like, okay, let me just jot down my ideas. And I had been, about 3 years out from that experience at that point. So I felt like I had a different POV that I didn't have, when I was in it. Or like right after. So I was able to kind of look at it from a third person's perspective, but also have that firsthand experience as main character writing from the main character's perspective. But it felt like a different version of myself. So I had that removal. But I remember feeling like, okay, like I need a creative outlet because my brain had been actively like working and going so much. In school, you're so used to being full on in academics and then just not having that felt really jarring. So for me, needed a creative outlet and writing was it for me. Mind you, I had never written a script before. I had read a million plays, as a theater person, but this idea that I had was for a television show. And so, of course, I love TV. I had a lot of inspirations like Quentin Brunson and Issa Rae, and Rami, Jason Sudeikis. So I had all of these different writers that I really was inspired by, but I really did not know the structure. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to write and see how it goes. Essentially, I had thought of what was my first memory from that experience and how did it take me through until the end. And so I was able to kind of outline, I think this would take place over the course of maybe 6 or 8 episodes. And then from there, lay it out what happened in each one. How could I wrap up an experience that I had in 6 to 8 episodes? And also take creative liberties. I think because I was sitting at home and I was like, okay, I'm not really outside with anyone. I'm not really interacting with anyone. How can I be more active? How can I have a more interactive experience that feels really like human connection? I really was missing that human connection. And so writing was able to put me into a world that I was familiar with, but, again, removed from, but also could dive into and really just build that world for myself. And again, take creative liberties and be like, okay, what do I wish happened? Like, what do I think, would have been fun if this crazy thing happened, this dramatic thing happened, or this funny thing happened, and put it in the story. And so I was able to kind of just take different creative ideas that were living inside of me and put it to paper. And again, didn't really know what I was doing, but I think watching more film and TV like everyone else was helping me learn that structure of like, okay, there has to be something like, inciting incident, and then like, you have to introduce the characters in the first few minutes, like all of that. So I was able to kind of learn that and then work on that for a few good months because I was at home. Eventually, I went back to school and I ended up actually minoring in producing because I was so interested in how the sausage got made. Going into university, I thought I was just going to be an actor. And I was like, okay, if we're just going to do acting, then I guess this is all will be. I never viewed myself as a multi hyphenate. I never saw myself as a writer or as a producer or anything like that. So taking classes that gave me that structure was really helpful. I also started taking film classes. I was like, okay, let me read some scripts. I eventually ended up doing an internship at a management company where I was able to read a million, film and TV scripts. And again, just learn the structure and see like, okay, how are they really framing this in storytelling? And what can I use from that structuring in my own writing and help, but also find my own creative touch, my own creative spin on it. So that was really, really helpful. Yeah, that's essentially how the pandemic turned me into a writer. I think I wasn't expecting to have so much time on my hands, and I wanted it to feel constructive but also really fun and creative. And so having that combination and having the time and the space to do that was really, really helpful and conducive for me. And it's evolved into so many things now. I actually ended up submitting the pilot that I wrote for an NBC writers program. It did not get chosen because it was not great. And I admit that it was very much giving like first or second draft. I didn't have much time to like really work on it the way that I wanted to, because again, I was just kind of writing and putting pen and paper, self-editing, but not really giving it a lot of like outsider views, which I think is really helpful to have now. It actually ended up inspiring me to write a second pilot because that program required you to have two pilots. I said, oh, let me write another one. I had a different, idea that I've been sitting on and wrote about that. And it ended up being so, so great for me to just have all these different ideas live somewhere that felt tangible. Hopefully that was helpful for anyone else out there looking to start the writing process. I think it's, always kind of more scarier said than done, but I think, just putting pen and paper and not making it perfect, not feeling like it has to be this amazing thing, even though your idea, you should definitely believe in your idea. And I did, and I felt like it was a great idea. And I still think that it doesn't have to be this polished thing. It can take a lot of different drafts. I remember hearing that Jordan Peele did like a lot of different drafts of Get Out before it even made it to screen. And so I always think of that story because I'm like, okay, Rome's not built in a day. It's not built in a day, even though you want it to be sometime. That is essentially how the pandemic turned me into a writer. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and thanks for watching.